Thank you guys so much for joining us for this virtual visit week. I'm really excited about this conversation that we're going to have with the students and alumni. I know you guys have sat in on a few NSA classes that are online. Obviously not exactly the same as being able to see them in real life, but pretty close. But when we talk to our students and alumni and we ask them what is the most valuable part of their experience here, the overwhelming answer, the overwhelming majority, I should say something that's related to community. Although the classes are what we do, it's the community and the student life experience that really is the NSA experience. And so I'm excited to talk to a couple of our students and alumni to kind of get a little, so that you can get a little bit of that picture. So I'll have all of the students and alumni give a short introduction to themselves, but feel free to, as you think of questions, pop them into the Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen. But let me start off with our students first. Students, can you briefly introduce yourself, talk about where you're from, what brought you to the college, and what you plan on doing after you graduate?
Sweet, I will go first. My name is George Landis. I'm a senior at NSA. I'm originally from Indiana, and my family moved out here to Moscow a few years ago, so looks like I'll probably be staying in town after school. I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing after school, but I'm looking to get into some sort of sales position, so I'm looking at a few options. But I am trying to get through the rest of my senior year. I've got 3 or 4 more weeks left, and then life hits.
Hi, I'm Lana Lindstrom. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. After school, I want to go into nursing. And so the reason I came to NSA first is because I really wanted to have a good foundation and be really grounded in my Christian faith, in what I believe, my background. I grew up as a Christian, but I wanted to have a really firm foundation for going into such a secular career as the medical field is. So that is why I'm here at NSA. I'm a sophomore, so I've got two years left.
My name is Praise Mugiza, and I'm from Rwanda, Africa, and I'm a sophomore at NSA. The reason as to why I came to NSA was because I want to get into government once I go back home to Rwanda. And the reason as to why NSA was a no-brainer for me was because there's a diversity in disciplines. And, not only do you have to balance, how you invest your time in those disciplines, but you also have to, try and be as successful as you can in them. And so, that process, I think, is a great preparation for not only in the field, but particularly a political position or anything of that sort. So, yeah.
Thanks, guys. And alumni, can you quickly introduce yourself? Can you give us the year you graduated, describe what you do now, and kind of quickly rope in how your new St. Andrews experience affected what you do now?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Tollefson. I graduated in 2006 from New St. Andrews. I'm from Moscow. I still live here. And I guess my full-time job is being a mother and a wife. I have 3 kids, ages 10, 7, and 5. They're all at Logos School. So my main job is taking care of them. And I've done some other things. I published a book in the end of 2018, so it's been a little over a year. And I also I just sold an investment property that I was running as an Airbnb for the last year, so we've been busy. What was the other question? How my experience affected what I do now? Oh man, in so many ways. I mean, just being a mother itself, learning all of that theology from NSA and understanding the world around me, and just having the ability to clearly teach that to my children has been invaluable. And I know I couldn't have learned that anywhere else. Like it's been having clear, good answers for them when they ask all those questions about the world and about God, and has been really, really helpful. And learning, a lot of motherhood, which is what I do most of the time, is learning how to just work hard and problem solve, and submitting every area of my life, whether it's something really small like mopping the floors or feeding a crowd of people, like submitting that to Christ and learning what that looks like. And I think that NSA really molded me to be able to do that kind of work that the world thinks, oh, this looks so small, it's so insignificant. But learning to submit that to Christ makes it significant work. And I think I know NSA really molded me to think that way about the work that I do, whether it's, cleaning my Airbnb or writing a book or feeding my children peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, whatever it is. NSA helps so much.
All right, I'm Mike Church. I graduated in 2007 from NSA. I'm originally from Michigan, grew up back in the Midwest, and came out here for school and kind of followed some family. Since then, all my family's kind of ended up out here. So we're in Idaho and settled here, which is wonderful. I'm married to another NSA alum, and we've got 4 kids, live on a little farm outside of Moscow, so I'm local too. And I own and operate a real estate brokerage and property management company. And so that's what I do day to day. And I would say, to kind of wrap about NSA, how it prepared me or how it helped me get where I am. I think the couple main things would be clearly just integrating everything under the lordship of Jesus Christ was huge. And that wouldn't really matter what I'm doing right now. That has gotten me where I am in terms of just being able to lead my family, being involved in the local church, doing all of those things and understanding how all of them relate. But specifically with real estate, before I got into real estate, I was in sales, which real estate still has a lot of sales to it. And I think the ability to communicate clearly and to work on a lot of different things, but again, relate them all to kind of your end goal and relate to a lot of different people were probably some of the main skill sets, I would say, that have translated really well into my work. One of the things I love about real estate is that every day, every deal, every piece of property, everything is completely different. And yet you're obviously always kind of working towards the same goal. And I think NSA gave me that ability to jump back and forth between very different subjects, but yet see how they all relate. So, yeah.
Thank you, Alumni. Students, this question is a little bit more geared towards you, but we do not have dorms at the college. Can you kind of share what your living situation is like? Yeah.
So I live in a house. So yeah, NSA does not have dorms. So you as a student are required to find your own living situation. Oftentimes freshman year, that means living with another family in the community or renting an apartment with a bunch of other students. This year as a sophomore, I am living in a house with 8 girls. And so we share food, we buy it all together. And I think that it has created an opportunity to find out what real life is like, and having to deal with, paying bills, making sure that you get the trash out on time because it's not going to be picked up by your, by the person you're living with. I think that having to make sure that you pay your electric so you have that for the next month. It really prepares you for what life will be like after school is done and you do have your own house. And you get to learn it with a bunch of other students, which is, I think it's really fun.
I live in an apartment, and I live with 3 other guys. And part of what makes it interesting is the communication skills required in order for the house to be, to be in point. And so what we have to, okay, this is electric bill. This is how we're gonna pay it. We're gonna have people on Sunday. This is what we're gonna prepare. So just moving all those pieces and making sure everything is organized requires a lot of communication and talking and making sure everything goes well. And then another thing would be just responsibility. So taking things into your own hands is the beauty of living in an apartment or a house. Because in a dorm, I've done boarding school before, so I know in boarding schools or in dorms or anything in that living situation is provided for you most of the time. You're given, you're spoon fed in a sense, and that you don't have that luxury here. If it is a luxury, and you get to kind of learn how to become responsible. So there you go.
Thanks. So sometimes we like to think of it as, it sounds like really small things, making your own food, showing hospitality, paying your electric bill. But we think that those small responsibilities really do help our students have a steep on-ramp to becoming their independent Christian adults. Alumni, do you have anything to add to that as you, since you have gone from being a student to being not a student?
I had a little bit of a unique situation because my family lived in town. So I lived with my family for the first few years of college, and then I moved out and lived with a couple of U of I students, actually, who I knew from church. And that was a wonderful experience. And I think that's part of why NSA not having dorms is so great, is because you're not only in the NSA circle, you're also getting to know people. If you're living with a family, you're getting to know that family who's probably from one of the local churches, or in my situation, I was living with U of I students that were also going to church with me, and I think I was at Trinity and they were going to Christ Church, and just that overlap in the different groups in the community was really healthy, and it really helps you see life from a lot of different perspectives. I think at a small college, people can think, that you're in this little, almost like a cult, like everybody just sees all the same people all the time, but it's not like that at all. Like you really see the other members of the community who are in different stages of life than you, or even who are going to a different school than you. So I found that to be very healthy and helpful.
Yeah, I would echo that too. I lived in a different place each of the 4 years. An apartment with another freshman my freshman year, and then boarded actually with 2 different families, the Graukes and then with the Schlacks. I think me and my friends may have ruined the Schlacks for boarding because they never did it again after that. So we might take some blame there, but that was a wonderful experience. And then lived in a house with some guys my senior year. And I would agree with what Lindsay said, just that integration into the community. Whether it was even living with another freshman in an apartment, you're not just, in campus housing. NSA talks about how downtown Moscow is our campus, and you really feel that walking through town, through neighborhoods to get to school. The ability to kind of live with different classes too. I lived my sophomore year, I think it was, lived with one U of I student and a senior and a junior, and then myself. So just all of that kind of mixing it up a little bit, forcing you to be on your own, to make some of those decisions, and again just being part of the community so that your identity isn't all in NSA, it's like Lindsay said, in your church, in the people you're with, in the community as a whole.
Great. I'm going to hop in here because we've got a couple of questions in the Q&A feature. So please feel free to type some of those in as we're going, or in the chat box on the side. So the first one I have here is from Sue Lee. It says, do students have time to work outside of the NSA course load? And if they do, what kinds of jobs do students take? So some of our current students, this seems like it's geared towards you.
All right, I can go ahead and jump in real fast on this one. So when it comes to working outside of school, I work 10 to 20 hours a week at a local burger joint. And that's incredibly doable. I think working actually helps me focus my time that I do have left on school. Instead of having 3 or 4 hours of free time in which I'd probably procrastinate a little bit, if that's halved by a job that I'm going to, it makes me focus on the school that I have. And then outside of that, I do spend a lot of time doing school and working, but there is also free time. So in January, December through February, actually, there's a City League basketball season. I'm on a City League basketball team. I have enough time. I'm usually hanging out with friends on weekends. 1 or 2 nights a week, we're having people to our house for a dinner, or going to someone's house. It does, it heavily depends on the job that you have, and in to a degree what classes you're taking, depending on electives. But I'm able to work up to 20 hours a week, and I've taken a full course load through all 4 years of NSA, and I've still had plenty of time to connect with friends. I'm in a Bible study. It's not like we're working 24/7, school, work, sleep. There is definitely time. I mean, that's the thing. You talk about community. There is time to be a part of the community and to do things with people in your class, people from your church, people who go to the U of I, and the opportunities and the time are definitely there to do more than just school.
Great.
Just jump in really quick and say I work at a local coffee shop. I work between 20 and 25 hours a week generally, and I have time to do all my school. I'm busy, but I like being busy, and so it works out really well. Like George said, I also have time for friends, so it's not just work and school. Sometimes I think people have this image of NSA students just doing school, and we do a lot of school, but that's not it entirely. Our house, since I live with so many girls, we and all of us work. We have all different schedules, but we also love having people over, and so there are people constantly in our house. And it'll be like, hey, we're having an extra person for dinner. Is that okay? I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, please, we want more people to be coming into our home so that we can reach as many people as we can. And I think having jobs is a really good opportunity to meet new people. There have been people that I've gotten to know that come into the coffee shop every day. And so we chat every day for a couple of minutes. And some of those people I've actually had over to our house because of the relationship that we've been able to create. We created a friendship that has, we can share the gospel with them by coming into our house. So I think working is a really good opportunity to meet people outside of NSA, as well as focusing your time on the remaining school that you have or friends.
It's really great. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Bryce.
Yeah, I was gonna say for our international students, I don't think we are allowed to work out of NSA, but NSA does offer a few jobs around different departments in the school, and I work at the library. I work about 10 to 20 hours a week, and it is great because it keeps me busy. And then out of school, I also have jobs that I can do online, translation jobs that I can do online for my language in Rwanda. And so I think you do have a lot of time out of school time to put in your work.
Yeah, and just to quickly clarify, the kinds of jobs, you're probably hearing a common theme, like service industry is a big one for a lot of our students because it's typically the most flexible, right, in terms of hours and being able to work in the morning or rearrange things. So you'll see a lot of that, but also we've got a lot of, since it is a very entrepreneurial community, people are always requesting odd jobs, and so there's like me in my truck, which is basically a guy who goes around with his truck and fixes things, and he will hire students to work for him. And so those are the kinds of things you typically see. Great. I'm going to keep us going here. Going to do my best. So Audrey, I see your question. I'm going to circle back around to it though later. So you'll have to be a little patient. So we have a couple questions about the transition to NSA and the background that students had coming in. So we have Jackson saying, when you first came to NSA, what was it like adjusting to the workload? And then we've got another one saying, where have you homeschooled? If so, were you well prepared for NSA? So I'd like maybe an alumni to take a stab at that, to talk about the initial adjustment and your background, and then we'll go from there.
I can go ahead and start. I went to Logas School for High School, which is the ACCS school here in Moscow. And that was a great preparation for NSA. NSA is different and it's a little harder as far as the workload goes. So I found that to be a little more intense, but I was definitely able to keep up with it, and I was able to do what I needed to do to get it done. And I thought that the transition was very natural for me, coming from ACCS school going into NSA. I'm not sure about homeschoolers. I homeschooled until high school, but I had a high school to prepare me for NSA. So that was my experience.
Yep. George, do you want to hop in since you were homeschooled?
Sure. Being homeschooled, for me, it was a great transition, actually. I think a lot of it might depend on how you're homeschooled. So I can't speak for every situation, but I know personally my mom was very, very into us as kids, just reading a lot. We did have to write papers. The only thing we didn't really do was public speaking. We lived out in the country, had no friends, sort of thing. But in terms of translating, just going from reading and writing into NSA, that was not that hard. And I felt pretty well prepared for the most part. And there was no shock. There was no shock of coming in and be like, man, I am completely unprepared for what NSA is doing. And there's a level of I don't know, when you're coming as a freshman, there's a level of, I guess, fear. You know, you're at a college. You're dealing with in-person professors. They're assigning really hard, deep books, and I think at the beginning there's a tendency for people to panic and almost overwork when they first come in. But within a couple of weeks, you definitely get the hang of what the professors are doing. You get to know kind of how they're expecting you to read, what you're supposed to get out of it, and it becomes very natural very quickly. I haven't found there to be a lot of ambiguity when you come in. And if for example, I really didn't do languages that much in high school. So coming to NSA and trying to do languages was, for the first couple weeks, was definitely a lot harder. But professors are generally willing to talk, willing to give advice. If you have questions, they're very ready to help. So I would say, yeah, it's a combination of being well prepared and also then the school being prepared to help kids along who haven't experienced everything that they're going to experience at NSA. And I think that's natural and expected. And for the most part, after that, first week or two of kind of initiation, you do have it down, and it feels pretty comfortable.
Great. I think we have time. Let's hear one more person on that question. Whoever wants to hop in.
I'll hop in.
Yeah.
So I also, like Lindsay, I went through an ACCS school. I was homeschooled for 1 year before it kind of started, but back in Michigan. So there was a lot of preparation there that was really helpful. but I thought it might be helpful to have a perspective of maybe a not so good student. I was not an academic, was not really a great student in high school. And yet I think coming into NSA, like George said, there's some fear there, there's all that. But not only did NSA help me with it, but I feel there was just a tremendous sense of camaraderie of kind of, we're all in this together. Let's stay up late and finish this, and I think being a guy in particular, that challenge aspect was huge. Kind of coming to NSA and feeling like this is going to be super hard. Like, man, like, there's just, Dr. Atwood at the time was the president, and he just, at the first gathering together, like, basically challenged us, like, you're not going to be able to get all your reading done. Like, this is going to be too hard. And that was like, oh yeah, I bet we can. And so there was just that almost boot camp like challenge to it, especially the initial weeks of freshman year were awesome. And just the ability, kind of, everybody was in it together. We're all going to go to the ice cream social and then stay up super late finishing this stuff and be ready for class in the morning. So everybody's in it together, and there's that community to kind of bring you through, even if you're not an outstanding student like I was.
Thanks, Mike. That was great. Thank you for the honesty too. Just the humility there. That was great. All right, Audrey, we'll come to your question now. So Audrey asked, what is a favorite thing about NSA relating to academics and community? So pretty much open to anybody who wants to answer, but it could be professor, it could be an event, it could be an aspect, but try to contain yourself and share a favorite thing about NSA.
I guess I'll go ahead again. For me personally, the biggest thing is just being surrounded by like-minded people. So when it comes to studying or being in class, having assignments, it's like what we were just talking about, having fellow classmates to do something, people who are like-minded and willing to do things with you and work with you. That's great. And then also outside of that, when I'm doing something out in the community, for example, I play a lot of Frisbee. And I've never been in a situation in my life where I would go to a field randomly, and half the people there I know from various churches in town, and it's just a completely different experience, even just on a day-to-day basis. So being surrounded by in general like-minded people from anything from work, school, and to play has been amazing.
I'll jump in and say what my favorite thing was. I definitely think that my favorite thing about my years at NSA was and I also worked at NSA a little while after graduation, was being around the professors and seeing their joyful living, and seeing how they lived lives of gratitude all the time. And it wasn't just in the classroom. They weren't just they weren't just excited about the subject they were teaching. They just had these lives that were defined by joy and gratitude. And I think there's really no other environment I've ever been in where I've seen that kind of joyfulness for life just exemplified.
My favorite thing about NSA is when I came here, I never thought that there was going to be a community that would be as loving and caring as this community. You come in and you meet everybody, and there's this misconception that homeschoolers are not going to have a story, or not going to be interesting, I mean, but they are, and everybody does have a story. And once you talk to everybody here, you figure out, oh, that's really interesting. So that was fun. And you're always invited to things. Every Sunday, somebody's like, come to our house and have, lunch with us. So I think just the love in this community, and it's just, it's become a second home. Yeah.
Well, I'll jump in. A couple things. I would be remiss if I didn't say finding my wife was my favorite thing about NSA. I'd probably get in trouble for that one. But I think the other things would be both the faculty, to echo what Lindsay said, just that is, I think, the biggest thing about NSA is that you are being taught and literally poured into by these men and women, for me, particularly the male role models of people who you really want to be like. I still strive that I hope to be like my professors at NSA. And, I think that's the incredibly unique thing, is that this group of faculty who you should want to be like and will be like, that's just the way God made the world, is that a student becomes like his teacher. And that's an amazing thing to be surrounded by and, again, poured into by that group of faculty. I'd say the last thing kind of related to student life was that it was a student life that was full of the same kinds of things: joy, gratitude, singing. I mean, psalm singing. I had a lot of friends from back home. We went through Christian school together. They went off to secular university and got into, a lot of drinking, a lot of stuff that is anti-Christian life. And to have the college parties end with the doxology, or people bringing out their contuses and singing psalms at it, is just amazing. And I think for me, that was huge in kind of, again, shaping that full integration, not just of your subjects under the lordship of Christ, but your parties, your social life, everything. That was just absolutely huge.
Okay, really quick, since everyone else has talked. I think my favorite thing about NSA academically is the fact that all of the professors love what they teach, and they will go to great lengths to make sure that you understand what you're learning, and to help you learn it even better. I mean, this, because of coronavirus, we haven't been able to do a lot of things that we normally do, like our history field trip. I was super disappointed that we're not able to do that, and Dr. Schlecht went above and beyond and contacted people to make sure that we had it kind of a substitute, and he's having someone come in and do guest speakers, and he's going way beyond what he COVID-19 is affecting everybody. He didn't have to do this, but the fact that he would go above and beyond to make sure that we get a special experience because we're missing, just a history field trip. That would have been really fun. But all of the professors do this. They, schedule things so that, real life experiences, like going on a natural history field trip. They want to make sure you're actually learning and seeing the real life effects of, not just what you're reading about in your books, but actually getting to see, getting to see the real thing. So seeing the faculty really pour into our lives and making sure we have the best experience, learning experience that we can, is probably my favorite thing academically.
Really great. Okay, so we have a question from Mr. Lightheart saying, what's the hardest thing about entering the real world after graduating from NSA? So maybe talk a little bit, you alumni, about the transition from college to workplace. What was that like? Was it hard? Was it not? And how did NSA factor into that?
I'll jump in. I think that for me, it was a little bit unique in that I had a transition period. I worked senior year actually at MZ, where I continued to work after college. So senior year provided me a nice transition into, quote unquote, the real world, getting started in that career. But I think that one of the hardest things, honestly, came a couple years afterwards, getting into parenting, and kind of a lot of life in addition to work. A job, career can be similar to your experience at NSA. You got your work, you got to get it done, you got, all these things. But then throw on top of that, a sleepless night, not because you didn't get your paper written, but because there's a baby crying, and there's, there's just all of life piling on, is one of the harder things. But I think NSA does prepare you well for that, and prepare you to tackle those things joyfully, take those sleepless nights, get up the next morning, show up for work, ready for your presentation, and all of that. So I'd say that's probably, again, I had a bit of a unique experience, but I would encourage, you to be looking for ways to use your whether it's summers or your part-time work during school, to do internships or something that can help ease that transition, so it's not so abrupt.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say that it wasn't hard. Like, I was very prepared to work hard at whatever God put in front of me. And I had, like, had connections. My senior year, I had already started working, doing the job that I did after NSA. And so I had a very easy transition leaving school and just taking on more hours and more responsibility. And I've done a lot of jobs since then. And I really think that the variety of the types of subjects that you have to study at NSA prepared me to work a variety of jobs and prepared me to learn to juggle a lot of different things mentally, and physically, just how to work hard physically, but also mentally how to go from something that you've never done before and learning how to do it and how to do it well, and figuring things out as you go. I did a lot of that at NSA. Latin for me was figuring it out as I went the whole time. And so I think that NSA prepared me for just the variety of jobs that I've experienced.
Really great. Thank y'all. Okay, this one is, I think, could be open to everybody. So we've got a question from Jackson that says, did you know what you wanted to do after college? And if not, how did NSA help to guide you into your career? So obviously I think you get a couple different takes, maybe from the alumni perspective or the student perspective, but does anybody want to hop in and give their thoughts on that?
I always knew that I wanted to write a book, and NSA prepared me very well for that. For one thing, I obviously got connected to a publisher through NSA. I got connected to Canon Press, so that was super helpful in publishing a book. But also writing a thesis and all those papers that I had to write. But the thesis especially, I was part of the group that had to do I think our thesis was like 100 pages or something. It was pretty long. And that really prepared me for that goal and that dream that I had in that area of my life.
For me, I thought I knew what I wanted to do after NSA. I always thought I would go back to Michigan and be involved in my family's business. My family's in the lumber business back there. But God had very different plans for me. And NSA did prepare me extremely well. One, like I said, same thing, the connections in the community to get involved in MZ, which exposed me to sales, and never thought of myself as getting into sales, but jumped into it, found myself very, very good at it, and then transitioned into real estate, which is something I always had an interest in. And I think I kind of talked about it earlier, but NSA did prepare me very well for those things, in both skills and just overall. But in terms of maybe guiding me to it, I think it was more just the connections. Again, being here, connected to and exposed to different opportunities like sales was extremely helpful.
I'm actually going to jump in on this one too, as an alum, not as me, but I had a similar situation to you, Mike, where I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, but when the rubber hit the road and I was teaching and I was also doing an internship at Canon Press, I ended up finding out that my skills and gifts were much better used elsewhere. And I think something that's really cool about our New St. Andrews experience is that we don't have majors. You're not sectioned off into a path that you're going to have to make sacrifices and decisions if you want to turn a different direction. And so I'm super grateful to the flexibility and the fact that it doesn't limit you. If I had gone somewhere else, I would have gone into education and then found out that I really love communication and sales.
I'll jump in and say, well, obviously I am not an alumni, having graduated, but as I said, I always knew I wanted to do something in government back home. And coming to NSA has kind of showed me that there is a need for that out there. Taking the Thucydides class and figuring out, human nature in terms of power and how people scramble for power, however abstract that sounds. But you just kind of learn how to deal with that and how to deal with the greed that, we have as humans, and how God takes that away and sanctifies us to not be that way. But I think that has been one of the greatest things. And then also like the Phaedrus class that Mr. Griffith teaches. That's one of the classes that I've kind of had to learn, how people, use power for bad, and how we could, what we can learn from that and how we can change that going forward. So, yeah.
So I'm not planning on, I'm going into nursing after NSA, so I'm going to be going back to school for that. But the reason that I wanted to come to NSA first was to really have like I said earlier, solid foundation. And even just taking like natural history from Dr. Wilson, you're learning about creation, about biology, chemistry, all of that from a Christian perspective, which is not something that I would have in a secular university. And so learning that first and really understanding the worldview from which we view creation, understanding how the human body works and how beautiful that is and how great that is, and instead of just viewing it as, oh, you're learning this in textbook and just memorize it and get on with your life, actually understanding how great God is and how he created us. So I think that NSA, besides, teaching us to work hard, all of that will translate to later life in nursing, in, whatever you end up doing. It's teaching you to think critically, and to, whatever you read, come at it with a perspective of, what is your end goal? And I think that NSA definitely, it prepares you for, like Grace said, any area of life that you actually go into. Critical thinking is an important aspect of that.
Yeah, and I would just maybe jump in and say, if maybe you're watching or listening and you don't know what you want to do, right? So a lot of the folks here, it seems like maybe they had some sort of idea of what they wanted to do, and then maybe it changed. But I would say, even if you don't know, that the kind of education that New St. Andrews provides, especially with the broad classical Christian liberal arts, is one of the best ways that you can sort of discover what your skills are, like Grace is saying, and really be involved in a community that has all these different outlets for you to basically figure out where it is that God is calling you, right? So many of our students end up getting internships, and like we've already talked about, they've got different job opportunities. And so it's pretty, they're able to pretty quickly identify, okay, here's what I'm good at. And okay, I thought I was good at this and maybe I'm not so good at it, so I need to do something else. And so just a word of encouragement. In high school, you can feel this pressure to know, like, I need to have this 15-year plan of what I'm doing with my life. And if I don't, then I failed. That's just not realistic. Part of what we're trying to do here is to make you a certain kind of person who is able to excel no matter where you end up. And this is all things that these folks have said, but coming at it from that angle. Looks like, so we got a question about books. So what are some books that would be good to read before getting to NSA? Any recommended reading? Maybe get a head start on your freshman theology class?
I don't know that there was necessarily any specific books other than one that I think, at least when I was coming, it was recommended by the school that I read. It was called Thriving in College. And I can't remember the name of the author, but it was just basically, you're coming to college, you haven't necessarily lived like a college student before. Here's how to handle that. And it's just really practical and useful for transferring from living at home into going and living in an apartment and going to school. Outside of that, I don't know that there's necessarily any particular book that's going to set you apart at NSA. You know, read your Bibles every day. That'll help. But there's not like, you know, if you get a head start on City of God or whatever it is, I don't know that that's going to help you more than you reading it in real time with your classmates at school. So yeah, that Thriving at College book is huge. What Grace is putting in the chat box too, and then just read your Bible.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I would say echo 100%. Read your Bible. Make sure that's a daily habit. But then also read for fun. Whatever you're getting ready to come to NSA, they're going to pile plenty on you to read. You're going to be full up. So read what you want to read for fun ahead of time, because you're gonna have a full plate when you get here.
Yeah, I'd say not. I wouldn't recommend any particular reading, but I would recommend you to kind of read anything that would give you the ability to be efficient. So like how to take notes better, faster, or you know, how to arrange your notes and you know, that kind of thing, and maybe how to read faster and comprehend faster, because you're going to need it. But I think that's pretty much it. Other than that, you don't want to spoil the experience by reading before you come in. There you go.
Great. If there are any more questions, feel free to put them in. Grace, is there anything that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I just had a couple last questions to kind of wrap this up. So I think you guys have mentioned on and off the community outside of the college. Can you guys talk about the Moscow community or the church community? How have you been involved, and how have you blessed the community outside and been blessed by the community outside? And alumni, students, feel free. Jump in.
So I go to Trinity Reformed Church, and I think one of the biggest things that I've been blessed by the community is, you know, after church they have coffee, donuts, and parents, you know, of little kids will come up to you and ask you how you're doing, what you're doing with your life, and you just get to know people in the church really well. And then a couple times a year they'll have, you know, student dinners where you sign up and you go to a new person's house, and you get to know people in the church really well. And that as a student, when you're spending a lot of time with other students, it's really refreshing to go to a family's house and see just, you know, a different life than you are in currently. And so also, I guess the way that I have been involved in the community is because I go to Trinity, I've done a lot of babysitting for the different conferences that they have, you know, just helping out different families if they need it for babysitting. Typically that's what I've done. Also this SRO club for NSA, Students for the Relief of the Oppressed. They do leaf raking every year, and so that's an awesome opportunity. You know, spend a couple of hours going out and blessing the community, and also raising money for people around the world. I think that's an awesome way to be both blessed and bless the community.
I also help out at the church. I'm part of the cleanup crew, so we clean up the church ready to get ready for second service. I'm also part of the local dancing community, and so we dance every Sunday. If you love swing dancing, you know, feel free to hop on the train when you come in. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And after that, we also get invited, as Lana said, every week, every Sunday after church, we have coffee and donuts, and you get the opportunity to talk to different people of all ages, and you get connections. Like there, a lot of jobs have gone in the community. Just somebody's like, hey, I talked to you and you were interested in this kind of thing, and we have this going on. Why don't you come and help us? And so those kinds of things, opportunities that come with connections that you develop in the church community. And so that has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would say that from my time, getting involved in service as well is really big. We sheepdogs, church community or church kind of thing through Matt Gray, the campus minister with Christ Church. And, we would do wood splitting to provide firewood for families who needed it. We would go out and help people with construction projects. We would just getting your hands dirty, working hard on the weekends or getting up early to go cut firewood was a huge part of that community involvement. And then too, for me, I don't know how many of you listening are, interested in the outdoors, but that's one of the things that's amazing about our area that's a little outside the community, but just the geography here is there's a ton of access to awesome hunting and fishing, mountain biking, hiking, just all kinds of amazing outdoor activities. And so I would encourage you to come to NSA. And then while you're here, don't miss out on all those. I mean, there's just an incredible, we're here in the inland Northwest. It's one of the most incredible places in the world. So there's lots of opportunities to get out and enjoy nature too.
I also just want to say, I don't think that the NSA experience really works without the community. I think you have to have the community to really fully experience what NSA is trying to teach you. The students need the families as examples of faithful living, but just in the same way, we as families, we need the students. We need their gifts and their perspective. And every year we get a new group of students moving to Moscow from different places with different perspectives and gifts and ideas. And I think that's what keeps our community thriving is all of those new people with all of their energy and their time and their abilities, and having them contribute to the community. So really, I think we need each other, and students and families and the singles and the older people, it all works together to build a faithful Christian life. And it's a really beautiful thing.
I'd like to say one thing really fast too. If, for any of you guys who do decide to come to NSA, something to keep in mind though is the idea that what you put in is kind of what you'll get back. A lot of times the students that I see who struggle the most with living in Moscow are often very, very grades obsessed or just introverted or scared. Or not that introversion is a bad thing, but excessively shy and scared and timid. And so there are opportunities like Bible studies. You will get invited places. People will ask you to come help them do things. And I think something to keep in mind is despite how scary school may seem and your next assignment, it is really, really important to take the time to be involved in your community. Freshman year, there were a bunch of senior guys who were running a Bible study, and I was definitely like a little bit panicked about school those first 2 weeks. I think I said that earlier, like the first couple weeks were rough, but my older sister was like, you need to be a part of this. And it ended up being a huge benefit. I'm still friends with most of those guys, the ones who haven't moved away at least. And it was a great time to be reading my Bible intentionally with other guys, praying with those guys, kind of hearing what older people had to say. So something to keep in mind definitely is take advantage of the opportunities that are there. And while you do want to be doing your best in school and glorifying God with your school, you also don't want to become like an issue where it's a problem and you're not actually benefiting from all the great things that surround NSA and the church community here.
Great. We have a couple, I'm not sure what y'all's time frame is like, Grace, if we have a couple more minutes. We've got a couple questions that come in that we could answer. What do you think?
If students or alumni, if you need to leave, feel free to step out, but I think I'm good to power through. So.
Yeah. Perfect. Sounds good. Then I'm going to actually answer Caleb's question really quick, and then we'll loop in some of these other ones. So Caleb asked, which churches in the community have a dynamic college ministry? I suppose it depends on what you mean by college ministry and what you mean by dynamic. So in terms of, what churches minister particularly to college ministry, college students, if that's what you're asking the way that the sort of big church, the big sort of core churches in the NSA community, Trinity Reformed Church and Christ Church, they don't have it. They don't really have the sort of church structure where they sort of split out, children's ministry, college ministry, young ladies, older ladies, partially because their understanding of what it means to live in a community is by bringing all these various people together. And I've actually found that to be much more helpful, is that it's not like, okay, college students, come over here and, live your lives and try to get your little college community going. It's actually, no, everybody's in a different stage of life, and you get this different wisdom coming in from, the older, the younger. And so at the same time, we do have sort of outreach or groups that operate with the churches and operate with the college that wants to provide a supplement. So Lana mentioned SRO, which is a New St. Andrews sort of group, which is a ministry to our students, but is more geared towards, again, the students for the relief of the oppressed. We've got Collegiate Reformed Fellowship, which is as a ministry of Christ Church and Trinity Reformed Church, that is largely composed of New St. Andrews students, but we're trying to reach the university campus. Moscow is the home of the University of Idaho, which is a big state school. And so we're trying to find ways that we could reach our community and bless them with what we've been given. So I'm not sure if that really gets at your question, but that's sort of how I would start to answer it. So let's see. Does the Moscow community have organized sports? What kind? And is tennis one of them?
No, we have rugby. Okay, first of all, tennis is not one of them, but we have rugby. We have 4 terms, each 8 weeks. The first term we have rugby. Second term we have volleyball, and third term as well. And then fourth term we have soccer, right? Or football. And it's a lot of fun. A lot of people, everybody gets involved. Both, men and women. We play an alumni as well. We have a lot of games. And it's a lot of fun. When you say organized, I don't know exactly what you mean. If you say we compete competitively, we don't. It's for fun and for the exercise and fitness part of it. So, yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Also, outside of New St. Andrews, the city of Moscow. I think I mentioned this earlier. I play for a city league basketball team. The city of Moscow provides a lot of sports avenues. So there's city league softball, city league volleyball, basketball, and there's even like city league hockey, I believe. There's a lot of that. I don't know of any tennis specifically. I don't know of anything organized like that. I do know of a group of like 6 to 8 people who go play tennis 2 to 3 nights a week during the summer, but for that specifically there's not. But there are several, both in NSA and then in the provided by the city itself. There are several sporting avenues, and then also there are a lot of people here who will just play a number of sports for fun. So even though it's just pickup, it can still be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in and say I played a lot of tennis while I was at NSA, but it wasn't necessarily organized competitive. But one of the great things, not only the city of Moscow, but the university has access to a lot of great facilities, and we would even play in the Kibbe Dome is the local kind of big, it's football, multi-purpose kind of thing. We'd go play tennis all through the winter out there too. So there's a lot of access to a lot of facilities and a lot of people who are engaged in and want to play a lot of different sports. So sports ended up being not on the collegiate level, but a huge part of just kind of student life at NSA.
I wanted to quickly jump in on this one too. So at New St. Andrews, you guys all missed our new actual official sport that we do compete in, which is rowing. And that goes throughout the year. Oh, I probably just stole Lana's thunder, actually. You're probably going to talk about No. You're on the rowing team, right?
Yeah, I am. I kind of forgot about it because I haven't been doing it recently. But yeah, so rowing is a super, super fun activity, even though we haven't competed yet because this is the first of like official year that we've had it. But one of the, and I think everything has probably been canceled for this year because it starts, I think it started in May and goes into June. But yeah, we do have a team. We practice. George is on it as well. We practice almost every single day, and it's a really, really fun opportunity to, yeah, just to get to know the people on the team better and to get into shape.
Nice. I also wanted to quickly just chat about the more informal sports, kind of echoing George and Mike, but a lot of things happen at NSA because there are a group of students that are interested in something. For example, when I was a freshman, soccer was not part of our student culture. And because we had a group of students come through that were really into it, it became part of our day-to-day, or not day-to-day, part of our year calendar. So if you are interested in something like tennis or some other sport, finding an avenue for that interest is very feasible. But.
Yeah, so I don't know if y'all can hear me. My connection is kind of bad. Can you hear me still? Okay, cool. Good stuff. Really quickly, does NSA have a speech debate team? The official answer is no, sort of like we've talked about. There's not an official team that we put together. However, part of the undergraduate course load is rhetoric. So learning how to deliver speeches, learning how to communicate effectively. A lot of our students do have a speech and debate background. And again, it's sort of the way the administration kind of approaches it is like, we want to enable you to do the things you're able to. So if you come and you've got enough folks and you want to start this speech and debate team, do it. So just really, really quickly there. So we did have a question about from Abigail. And so she's asking, okay, there's all these amazing things about NSA, but with everything, right, what are some of the cons? One that kind of comes to mind are things like distance, traveling far from home. So maybe talk a little bit about some of the hard things about that transition, or if that makes sense.
I'm going to say, I think you just said it. It's for me, personally, it's just coming from far away, coming here, trying to talk to people back home is kind of difficult. But and then another thing would be the education background. So I never had any, classical education or anything of that sort. I did Cambridge, which is kind of like a UK system. And, you do things like economics and geography. And then when you come here, it's a lot of, philosophy. It was different things. So it was very, very different. Nevertheless, it didn't take away anything from the NSA education. It was still amazing in a different way. And also taught me how to go back and study all these different other things, but the ability to learn how to learn and, knowing how to learn, I can learn the other things much faster, more efficiently and better. So, yeah.
I can't really think of any real hard and fast cons, but there are definitely potential drawbacks. I think something that a lot of people see as a benefit, but could also be a con, is the fact that the school is small. So I know every single person in the school, like at least by their face, and I could talk to them. In one sense, that's amazing. Like we're all at the same school together. But the other, in another way, you also you also see those same people around town, and you can't it's harder to put up some sort of facade or to fake. And again, that I think in the long run that's a good thing, but it can be, it's a completely different experience than any other college, and you can't try to like I guess use the word rebrand yourself, because you are who you are, and for the most part there's enough people here that there's a lot of them, but you still know all of them, and you can't hide who you are from everyone. So again, I would say that's actually a good thing, but it does keep you accountable, and it can be, a little bit scary.
This is trivial, but one of the cons would just be the weather sometimes. And depending on where you're coming from, I came from Michigan, so I was ready for snow, but spring here can be long, cold, and wet. And then as NSA students, or really all the students, mostly leave when Moscow's just getting absolutely incredible. Like summers here are unbelievable, and a lot of the students don't get to experience them. But I mean, that's a minor thing. I do think that so many of the things that seem to be cons coming into it, whether it's the size like George was talking about, or the lack of programs, like, oh man, they don't have this particular class that I want to take. Those things seem like cons coming into it, but the structure and the I guess the program schedule, the way the college has laid it out is incredible. And while I felt like I wanted more business classes or those kind of things, NSA prepared me well to go out and learn those things myself. I think I would have really missed out on not taking some of the things that they did have me take that way. So.
Great. Let's actually start to wrap it up so we don't take anybody's time. So we've talked a little bit about this already, but say, okay, I'm interested in New St. Andrews College, or at least I'm interested in being interested about it. What do I do right now, right? So how do I, what would your exhortation be to a student who says, I want to look into this, I want to head that direction? What should I be doing right now?
I'd say read a lot. Read whatever you get your hands on. Hopefully, something good. But I say, reading, and just trying to learn how to be efficient, I'd say, is the biggest thing. And I keep coming back to that, but it is truly important, because NSA is about if you have efficiency, how to be efficient down, you will be really successful at NSA. There's that, and then there's just the communication part of what makes NSA great. And because it's a small college and we have a small number of people in the school compared to other colleges, it is paramount that you learn how to communicate. So if you are a homeschooler or somebody in a small school, try and talk to people, right? And learn how to, just communicate. And then when you come in and say it's a lot simpler. So I'd say that.
Really briefly, I think that probably the most important thing that I can think of, and it sounds inconsequential, would be just your daily habits. Because once you get into school, like college is harder than high school, and you're not, for the most part, you're not living at home, you're not living with your family, and you have to take care of everything. And it's surprising how important it is to make sure that you wake up, get out of bed, make your bed, read your Bible, brush your teeth. Like that's crazy important, and that stuff will actually fall by the wayside, and it does for so many students, because they're so caught up in the stress and the deadlines of things. And and it's hard to like I said earlier, reading City of God, or I don't know, like trying to learn the music stuff before Dr. Herb teaches it to you. Maybe that will be beneficial, but you're not going to be getting the same thing out of that as you would in the class, and you're going to be doing it again in the classroom. And what you can take care of is your personal daily habits, and don't let those train yourself now, so that when you're in college you don't let those things fall by the wayside. because it's really easy to do. And then those things add up and pile up, and they can lead to roommate problems, problems for yourself, and it's just not worth your time if those are easily avoidable.
I would say the daily habits is a huge part, but also just on a practical level, really practical level, take some cooking lessons. Ask your mom how to make rice. My brother, who is also at NSA, called me one time asking how to cook rice. And so just simple things like that, learning how to, you're going to have to eat your own cooking. And that can be a challenging part of, living on your own.
Mike, do you want to hop in? Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I want to say it really quick. If you're in the category of you're interested in NSA, I'd say apply. You will not regret it. If you don't know, you're kind of on the fence, this is obviously great. You're getting some questions answered, but talk to Grace, I don't know who the right person is, but get connected, talk to Grace, and she can connect you to other students, other alumni too, who can maybe answer some of your more specific questions. If you're interested in a particular field of work, a particular type of recreation, things that maybe those of us here didn't answer for you, reach out and ask. I mean, that's going to be, no matter what, that's a skill you're going to need to learn is, reach out, connect, and ask. And I guarantee you there's somebody who can speak to the questions you have. And just come. I mean, come out here. It's an incredible thing. You won't regret it.
Great. Thanks, y'all. Yeah, I think to sum that up, just being faithful where you are right now, right? Taking the practical steps, obviously, to figure out if NSA is where you want to go. But yeah, just be faithful right now, because that faithfulness today is what's actually going to carry on to when you get later on. You can't just put off faithfulness till tomorrow and then wonder why things are so hard. So really great stuff. Y'all, thank you so much for attending. We're an hour and 15 minutes in, so it went by really quick. So it must have been fun.
Yeah, sorry to keep you guys a little later here. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday, and also feel free to contact Jacob too. He can also help you out.
Oh yeah, I work. Yeah. Perfect. Y'all have a great Saturday.
Bye.